We'll look at applications involving point and slope. Suppose an administrative assistant needs to order paper for their copy machine. Each ream costs $7.50, so make a table and create a scatter plot for the total cost, C, of buying X reams. This is a fairly basic word problem to start off with, but what I want to focus on now is that when you're given each ream costs $7.50, what that is essentially telling you is what the rate of change or slope is. And what we've done in the past was we've used a point and a slope to write y equals mx plus b form. So in a word problem, the way that you may be given slope is in this context here. Each ream costs $7.50. You can think about that as $7.50 per ream. So that gives you a rate of change or a slope. So to make a quick table of values for X, the number of reams, and C, the total cost, again, this is a very straightforward one. If you bought 0 reams, the cost would be $0. If you bought 1 ream, that ream is going to cost you $7.50. If you bought 2 reams, it's going to cost you another $7.50. So it's going to cost you $7.50 twice. And then 3 reams will be $22.50 and so on. I'll just do one more with 4 reams, will be $30. So there's a table representing the total cost C of buying X number of reams. So remember, when you create a scatter plot, across the bottom is your X value, or your input value in this case, which is the number of reams, and then the independent variable, so the vertical axis, will be the total cost. So the total cost depends on the number of reams that you buy. Now we just answered part B right there. The independent variable is the number of reams, and the dependent will be the total cost. So when you create a scatter plot, again, this is a fairly basic one. Across the bottom will be X, up the side will be C, representing total cost. And X is your number of reams. So a very basic scale here. We're just going up, starting at 0 reams and going up by 1. So we can start at 0 and let each tick mark represent 1 ream of paper. And then the total cost, well, if we let each tick mark represent $7.50, that second tick mark would be $15. If we skip 1, the next one will be 30, and then 45, and so on. So every tick mark going up the side represents $7.50. So the very basic scatter plot for this, if you plot the points and graph a line through those points, I'll put the answer up just so I can save time on this. So there is your scatter plot and the linear model for the total cost. So in part C it says, is the relationship linear? Well, yes, we could see that a line will pass through all the points. The slope of that line is the rate of change. So the slope of the line is just $7.50 per ream. And then the vertical intercept, where we started at, when X is 0, so when you buy 0 reams, you start at $0. So the vertical intercept is 0, 0. So moving along to the next part, now is the real meat and potatoes of this question. So if we have the total cost C after buying X number of reams, to write an equation relating that total cost, we have a linear model. So the equation If you take $7.50 times the number of reams, you end up with the total cost. Okay, and that's a fairly basic one. And if you don't see that right from the situation that you're given, remember that you can always write the equation of a line through 2 points. So if we know that 0 reams resulted in 0 cost and 1 ream resulted in $7.50, the change in cost is $7.50 for every 1 ream. So the slope of your line was $7.50 and our starting value was at 0. So right away that tells you in the y equals mx plus b context, it tells you that c equals 750 times x. So if you bought 6 reams of paper, what would the total cost be? So if you look at 750 times 6, what you're really doing there is remember that your 750 is in dollars per ream, and then 6 represents 6 reams. So when you multiply those with the units, what happens is the reams cancel off and you're left with dollars. And shouldn't total cost be in dollars? So when I say examine the units, that's what that means. Reams cancel off and you're left with dollars, which makes sense for cost. So you end up with $45 for the total cost. So moving along to the second example now. Again, it's not meant to be an overly crazy example. So you're given a gift card for $60 to a cafe. There's a combo meal that you buy for breakfast for $5 every time you order. So make a table showing R, the amount remaining on your gift card after X number of purchases. So the way that they define your variable there is very important. R is the amount remaining after X purchases. It's not the amount that you spent, it's the amount remaining on your gift card. So to graph the values in a table, you take X number of purchases, and R is how much is remaining. Well, when you start out, after 0 purchases, when you first receive the card, there's $60 remaining on the card. After 1 purchase, that's going to decrease by 5, okay, because the combo meal is $5. So if you decrease it by $5, you end up with $55. After 2 meals, you're going to lose another $5 to take you down to $50. After 3, you're going to end up at $45, and so on. Now eventually you're going to get down to 0. So when you read this question, again, the idea here is with a word problem, we're given the value on the card is basically decreasing by $5 every meal that you buy. So you can think about this $5 as your slope. Now the issue though is if the amount remaining is decreasing by $5, so you want to think about -5 or -$5 as being your slope. So -$5 per meal purchased. So then if you go through and graph it on a scatter plot, again, it's a fairly basic one. I'll put an answer up here just for the sake of time in the video. So number of purchases goes across the bottom, that's your X value, and then the amount remaining is your vertical. I just use 5 for each tick mark going up the side, and 1 for each tick mark for the number of purchases. So what happens on this one, again, it's a rather straightforward one, where if you go down 1 box to the right one, you stay on the line. But the slope, when you go down 1 box, is really down $5 for every 1 meal. So down $5 for every 1 meal. So there's your slope. So part B, graph the linear model and write an equation relating R and X. So again, just by the description, you start at $60. So the amount remaining is $60, take away 5 every purchase. If you're not comfortable with doing that, You remember, we made a table of values up here. We see that the R value goes down $5 for every purchase. So if you find the slope, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, you'll end up with a slope of -$5 per purchase. And again, they tell you that in the description of the problem. Once you have the slope, remember the idea is you substitute one of your points. Well, we know after 0 purchases, you have $60 left. So with the y equals mx plus b slope-intercept form, we can fill in the values that we have. We have the slope, and we have an xy value that we know is on there, which will help you find the b value. And notice what happens there, you end up with a b value of 60. So you can write your equation. Instead of using x and y, we have x and r. So r equals -5x plus 60. Now notice that is the same equation as r equals 60 minus 5x. The terms here are just kind of flip-flopped, but make sure if you do that, that the negative stays with the 5x and the positive 60 stays as plus 60. Okay, so you can write the equation just from the description of what's going on. Again, you're given a slope and a point. So you already have everything you need to write the equation of your line. That 60 represents the starting value, and that -5 represents the slope because you're losing $5 on the meal, on the account that's remaining. Okay, so going on to the other questions, how many combo meals have you purchased when there's $40 remaining? So that means R is 40. So just solve that equation. 40 equals 60 minus 5x. Or you could say 40 equals -5x plus 60. You'll get the same answer at the end, which is 4. And then solve the equation when R equals 0 and explain its meaning. So when R equals 0, instead of the 40 here, you're going to put in 0. And you solve that to get 12. When R equals 0, that means there's 0 remaining. And X is the number of combo meals you bought. So there's $0 remaining when you purchase 12 combo meals. So that's how you write the equation of a linear model given a point and a slope.